What's going on, guys?
What's up, everybody?
On Keeping On podcast this is episode 12. We got a new guest today. We're really excited. We're at his dojo, Karate America, and Master Creed, Robert Creed.
Master Creed,
Hello.
welcome to the gang.
Thank you.
Introduce us to, where we're at, how you got here a little bit.
Sure. So my name's Robert Creed. I started martial arts when I was 11 years old, and I have never stopped. The only time that I took a break, I took a 2-month break between my first school and my second school, and I was a stock supervisor at Banana Republic while I was in college for 2 months. And then I had all my guys starting breaking boxes with their hands and throwing boxes off of stuff and going, yes, I can! And it turned into a dojang in the back stock room. And I realized that, hey, this is not my calling.
Yeah.
So I walked into the Weston Town Center and I saw a lady that I used to teach her son, and she said, there's a new guy that opened up a school and he's waiting for you.
Oh, wow.
So I went and I introduced myself to him. His name was Master Chung. This was many, many moons ago. And he said, I've been waiting for you. You're going to come and work for me. I said, okay. And for that, I had one instructor my whole life from the time I was 11 to the time I was 20. He stopped teaching children, and I love teaching kids.
Yeah.
I was kind of lost for a little while, but God brought me right back 2 months later. The other 1 month I took off the mat. In 2006, I was teaching a class, and my knee popped out, and I ended up having to get surgery on my knee. And then the worst complication you can get is bilateral pulmonary emboli, which are blood clots in your lungs. And I was in the ER, and they told me that there's no way you'll be able to do martial arts again. And my pulse started going higher and higher and higher and higher. My mom came in, parted everybody, prayed on me. Next thing you know, the intensivist comes down, and the intensivist goes, hey, you teach my son. I'm going to put you in ICU bed 1, and I'll let you out of my sight till we get through this together.
Oh, wow.
I was back in 2006. So it's been a great journey. It's been, I'm 42. It's been 31 years that I've been training. And I've taken a total of 3 months off out of all of that time.
That's amazing.
All of that time.
31 years of mastery in your field.
31 years.
That's amazing.
31 years.
I would imagine that must have been such a big influence in like your discipline mindset. I've been able to work out with you quite a few times, and I remember seeing you. There was one time you had a timer, I think it was, on your watch, and you
Absolutely.
every certain amount of minutes. It was like a reminder for you to just like hype yourself up again and just going. And you would like shout in the middle of the workout, like, holy shit!
That's right. That's right.
And he would just shout and like just get amped up again and just keep going.
That's part of our public. We have a master program that we go through, and that's part of what you can see in public. We set alarms for 3, 6, 9, 12, 3, 6, 9, and then we don't have the midnight one because our wives don't enjoy that. But, we start off priming ourselves in the morning. Every successful person I know has a morning routine. And then throughout the day, people can drift in and out of state.
Yes, sir.
The way is to be that ideal state all the time. So when we make our whole body tight, we scream out that yes, 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 regardless of who's around.
Yeah.
You're in the car, you're in traffic, you're in the middle of a restaurant. You gotta get into state.
Yeah.
I know so many people that they go to work and they come home and then they sit on the couch, turn on the television, and then when they're with their family, they're not in peak performance state.
Yep.
They're not in optimum state. And then they wonder why they always need that extra in their family life.
Sure.
And then it starts being a drift instead of being intentional.
Right.
And life is to be lived with intention.
Yes, sir.
Constantly. So I'm glad you noticed that.
Oh yeah, yes sir, let's go. I remember that was very like it stayed on me, and we talked a little bit. You were telling me, just giving me advice like with working out and stuff. And
Absolutely.
Yeah, I remember. And just for me personally, recently I've noticed what you were saying about morning routines. Josh and I, my brother, we just started going to the gym like 6:30 over at the UFC.
Yeah.
Nice.
And it just makes such a difference for the rest of your day.
100%.
Because I come from where I struggle. That's my biggest obstacle. It's getting up early.
Yeah.
It's always been. I'm not ashamed to say it.
Yeah.
And I know most of my problems that I get throughout the day would be solved if I can just
get up early.
Beat that little obstacle of just getting out of the bed at when I set my alarm. Like if I can just do that, my whole day, and I noticed the last week or so, beating that clock and just getting up.
Yeah.
Everything else, the day is just so much easier. The workout is done.
100%.
I go to work, I feel better. Nothing stresses me as much, and everything is just better. My creativity's better. It makes such a difference. And the second I hit that snooze button and I oversleep, and I'm like, oh shit, now I gotta go to work.
Yeah.
Now I'm running a little late to work because I snoozed
Yep.
and this, and
Yep.
and then it's just stacks.
It's like
and
one
stacks,
thing after another.
and it just throws you off for the
Yeah.
whole day. And then I try to make up for it at night,
Yep.
and then which leads me to staying up later.
Yep.
Oh, but I can try to
It's a
get up early,
cycle.
and then I'm boom.
It's a
boom,
cycle.
boom, boom. So it's really interesting, and I feel like with martial arts, how you were saying, with just doing it for so many years, that must have set you in such a discipline, like just learning about discipline early.
Yeah,
early.
yeah.
I mean, you started.
Well, you know, you have levels. You know, you start with whatever martial art you begin with. It's a white belt, and then throughout the course, it becomes darker. There were no belts a long time ago. If someone had a black belt on, that meant with enough blood, sweat, and tears, their white belt became a different color, became black.
Wow.
And the reason why you knew that when you went in and you saw somebody that had a black belt on, because you could wash everything else, but you couldn't wash your belt. So that's the whole reason of the black belt. And it was more based on repetitions and obviously how many hours and how much class you did, because we all know that hard work beats talent when talent stops working hard. You know, we all know that. So the cool part about martial arts is you have these levels. You have white, and then you have orange, and then you have yellow, and then you have, and it just goes up to black. When I went to college, I wanted to study marketing. I went in and said, excuse me, I need every class that I need to take for my marketing degree. They said, what are you talking about? I said, I want a course outline of every single class I need to take. And those are the ones that I took, and I just checked them off. Because they had to fit in my schedule. So sometimes I took a 3,000 class before I took the 1,000 class.
Right.
I didn't care. I had to get out by 1.
Yep.
I had to come to the dojo,
Yep.
and I had to take all those classes. So the best thing it does for children and just for adults, for everybody, is that goal setting concept.
Yeah.
That goal setting concept, because we all want to level up, but we don't know how.
Yeah.
One way you can do is put the alarm clock in a different room.
Force yourself to
Get out of
force
bed.
yourself to get up. Yeah.
Just put it in a different room. You'll still be able to hear it.
Yeah.
So are you the type to, because you were saying like I feel like you like to list things off, right? So you're the type like you schedule your week, or you schedule you go day by day, scheduling everything one by one. And I think Matthew McConaughey said this once. He likes to just write down what he needs to do for the next day, the day before. Just scratches it off, even if it's something simple like brush my teeth,
Right.
shower, workout. But it's just little tasks that even the smallest thing that you complete can make you feel just that sense of accomplishment. Are you that type of person that you feel like, do you like set the schedule for like the day, the week, and you kind of like
We
to
do
mark things
what's
out?
called segment intention. So when you hear that yes, 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 that's the beginning of a new segment. It's a 3-hour block
Got it.
from 6 to 9, 9 to 12, 12 to 3, 3 to 6, 6 to 9. And you want to have at least one thing in that segment that's hard.
Yeah.
Like run 5 miles, do a legacy fit workout. And then, I find with my life, with a sense of accomplishment, if your life is a house and you have these walls, there's 4 of them that you have to feed. And I did hear somebody else say this too, but I think it's very important. We were talking about that a little bit ago. We talked about spirit. You have your spiritual, you have your emotional, you have your physical, and you have your mental. As long as you feed them every day, you're okay.
Yeah.
If not, you're unbalanced. You only feed the mental, but you never feed the physical. And you don't feed the emotional, like you don't give your wife and your kids a hug or call somebody that you haven't talked to in a while or anything like that. Then even though this is coming up, the house is sinking in this corner.
Yeah.
And then your cornerstone, if you will, is always your spirit. That has to always be intact, because if not, everything else crumbles.
What are some things that you like to do? Is it strictly just martial arts? Are you do you like to meditate? Are you doing different things that help you stay in a certain
State.
state? Yeah.
Well, I think that as human beings, we can become overwhelmed if we don't shut the book every night.
Right.
So every night we need to look back on what we did that day. Try to reconcile and possibly anybody that we've hurt, or if we've made any misunderstandings, see what we could have done wrong, and see if it's not necessarily our fault or someone else's fault. There's always something we could have done a little bit better.
Right.
Meditate on the day, so that situation doesn't repeat itself over and over again.
Right.
And then close that book, and then open the book of what you think the next day is going to be, and try to visualize the perfect outcome of the next day.
Right.
And then you're living those days intentionally instead of accidentally. And then if something happens that rocks you, you go off and then you get right back on the rails as soon as you can. And that's normally when that alarm goes off and you say yes, yes, yes again. That'll cause you to get back on that rail real fast. Because everything is, one of the oldest books that we have on personal development is As a Man Thinketh by James Allen.
Right.
And it's whatever you think in your garden is going to grow. Yeah. And that the power of people to control what they're thinking of right at that particular moment really determines how they're going to live that segment, if you will.
That law of attraction, right? Like I forgot which video it was, but just, it's like that radio station, just find, you gotta like,
The frequency.
what you put out.
The vibration.
And if you're being negative all the time, or if you're being reactionary, right? It'd be the complete opposite of what you're saying, where you're not living with an intent, you're just reacting to things. So
correct.
I've seen people like that, whether it's at work or anywhere, where any little thing, that's it, their day is ruined, because they're just reacting to anything.
Everything,
it could be positive, and they'll be like, oh, funny, great, and then if it's negative, and they're just constantly living like in this unbalanced state, I guess, if you will. And that's, I don't know, that's really interesting. It's just like that frequency, because if you're always negative, then you're going to keep attracting that. Or if you're positive,
you look for it.
Yes.
Like that's what you would be looking for if you live in a negative mind frame. Like what somebody may genuinely be asking you a question, you might take it a completely negative way. Like, why did they ask me that? And they might be like, oh, like what perfume is that? Somebody who's in a negative mind frame could be like, do I smell bad?
Yeah.
Like what's
right.
you know what I mean? Like it'll just be a wrong. They'll ask the wrong perception of the question. The person might just be asking, I want to know what it is. It smells good, or could be anything.
And then they take that ability to build rapport with someone,
right?
And they cut it.
Yeah.
It's that fixed mindset versus growth mindset type of thing. When you take things the wrong way, and the interesting part is that by itself, every holy book that there is talks about that as vanity.
Yeah.
Because you're focusing on you instead of focusing on everything else and how you can positively affect everything else. And a lot of people, when they think of vanity, they just think of, somebody combing their hair all the time, making sure their outfit looks perfect. But really, it's the self versus death of the self. It's the life of servitude. You have everything you want as long as you help other people accomplish what they want. Yeah. And that's Zig Ziglar, but that's very, very true. And the interesting part is I believe that suffering comes from two things. It comes from, number one, comparison. When you compare yourself to other people. So how do we fight that? Viraj has goals. Justin has goals. Robert Creed has goals. We all have goals. And my job is to help you accomplish yours, and you guys help me accomplish mine. But they're all independent from each other. Yeah. But if your parents never brought you to a martial arts school and you never learned about goals, then how would you determine your success? You would look at the people around you and gauge yourself based on them. Yeah. And the other thing, of course, from suffering comes from expectation. You're expecting this world to give you certain things. Yeah. You're expecting this or you're expecting that. So the law of attraction is important, but what I've found out is when you don't have any intention about it coming back to you, it comes back to you tenfold. If you just do it to do it, it's amazing what happens. Because people look for a lot of different things to have the attention and the spotlight on them. Right. And all they got to do is share their light with other people.
Right.
It's there's a book I read, 7 Laws of Spiritual Success, and if I'm not mistaken, one of the laws was like the law of detachment. You got to detach yourself, not be so attached to these things, because then you break the intention of it. If you're too attached to it, if you just detach yourself and like what you were saying, just do what you need to do, and without
no expectation,
it just kind of flows in. You're kind of like opening up this
And then for us, for guys, we have this weird, it's almost a little bit ambiguous between what is an expectation and what is a standard, right?
Yeah.
So standard of us has to do with, these are my standards. This is what I allow myself to engage in. This is what I allow people to enter my world to engage with me, and here are my boundaries. The expectation is, someone else's behavior. I can't expect anything from someone else's behavior. I can only control how I act on it.
Right.
Which is, you take their action, you think about it, and then you decide that you're not going to ignore it, but you're going to address it in a way when the emotions have kind of simmered down, and you can be a little bit more logical with your approach. So yeah, the whole standard versus expectation, but you're correct. With detachment, a lot of times when martial artists meditate, they take a decision that they're going to make, and they think about themselves and everyone involved and what is the least harmful aspect of the decision that they're going to make. Not, I'm going to hurt them, or I'm going to be prideful in myself. Just like if someone were to attack you and you had to create time and space, you're going to, of course, create time and space with your body if that's the most important decision, because you matter as well.
Yeah.
And their physicality also matters. But you don't just let them do whatever they're going to do to you and then not defend yourself. But
Right.
if both of your lives matter and both of your livelihoods matter, then you're going to up for the one that's going to hurt the person the least, and yourself the least. And I find that a lot of times in life, people don't do that anymore. They're so into themselves that they're going to get justice or retribution about whatever happened to them, but they don't think about the outcome of the other person.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, it limits them, because then they become less vulnerable and they become more callous. Their heart becomes more hardened, and when your heart is hardened, it's very hard for you to
That's true.
to be empathetic with other people.
And that is becoming more common, right? People it's like the new standard now to just be very I have my wall up. I can't, not allowing
It's become an
themselves
excuse
to-
almost, like a
Yeah.
like a crutch. Like I just, I did this because I have my boundaries up, or I didn't show enough love because, I was hurt before, or I have this trauma, or whatever the case
Yeah.
may be. Like people can use that as like a crutch in a way.
Yeah, like this person did me wrong,
Instead
so
of-
now I am going to be
Yeah.
this. They say it in Twitter and stuff. I'm in my villain era. Have you
Villain
heard
era,
that?
yeah.
So it's like
Villain era.
Yeah.
villain era. That's
Yeah.
that's the thing. So it's like
Tell me how that works
Which
out.
kind of goes to like what you're saying, is like where they don't think about what their actions would do to somebody else. It's because they might take some hurt that another hurt person has put on them, and then they're like, this is the energy I'm now going to channel.
Project
Yeah,
onto
project
other people,
onto
yeah.
other people.
Hurt people, hurt people.
Hurt
right?
people, hurt
Yeah.
people, exactly.
It's interesting because now we live in this world of social media,
Yeah.
and everyone has some opinion on whatever
Is
the
happening.
case may
Yeah.
be, whatever is happening. For me, when I look at it, when it comes to life and it comes to vulnerability, yeah, you're going to get hurt. Yeah, everyone has trauma, but at the end of the day, you want to be someone who's vulnerable to being hurt, because then you're also someone that's vulnerable to being loved.
Yeah. True.
If you're not allowing yourself to be vulnerable to be hurt, then you're not allowing yourself to be vulnerable to be loved. There is no positive without a negative, and there's no negative without a positive. That's
Right.
that symbol means. The yin and yang is
and yang.
everywhere. There's no masculine without feminine. There's no light without day. And I think that with social media, a lot of times people just want attention.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part. And we have this world of 3,000 friends on social media that really, okay, if we get 7 likes and we have 3,000 friends, do we really think that 2,993 people aren't paying attention to us? So let's get more vocal.
Yeah.
Let's get more sensationalized. And then, of course, all the algorithms, and that's all you see. And the more aggressive your behavior becomes, the more you get noticed.
that's definitely becoming a thing right now. People they're detaching from reality almost,
Yeah.
where they're so fixated on getting that reaction in
The
terms of
views,
numbers.
the likes, yeah.
In terms of numbers on a screen, that they'll do anything. It's almost like they're not even aware that this is an actual person that
The
you're
humanity aspect
humiliating
of
or-
like
yeah.
the empathy is dwindling, I think.
I'm one of those people that if I get an email that's derogatory, I'll show up at someone's house. And I won't do it in an aggressive way.
Yeah.
I just say, hey,
Like what's
I
yeah.
can't read your body language right now. I don't know your tonality right now. The worst way anybody can communicate is just with words.
With words, yeah.
Because like you said, with a negative mindset, even if someone's trying to be great with words, I'm going to think they're being passive aggressive.
Yeah.
And that's horrible. You know, and then the thing is, like, I don't know if this happens to you guys, but sometimes you'll call someone and they won't answer the phone and they will text you back an encyclopedia. If I call you, answer the phone. Let's
just talk about
let's
it.
have a conversation. That's going to take 5 minutes instead of sending back encyclopedias that are 45.
Yeah. Master Creed, early you'd sent me an article when we first talked about doing a podcast like this, and you talked about certain difficulties you had in the beginning, right?
Absolutely.
And for you to get to this point in specific, and then now we're just talking about communication and writing and stuff like that, and reading. How did you get here? Let's go over that. What those obstacles, talk about them. I'd rather they come from your mouth than my mouth anyway. And
Absolutely.
And how did you get to a point where you are now, and you pour that light into other people's lives?
So,
Take us all the way back.
all the way back. So my parents got divorced when I was 3 years old. We lived in Alabama. Alabama and South Florida are a very different world.
Yeah.
My stepmom and my stepdad were married to one another. My mom and dad were married to one another. And then my stepmom became my stepmom and my stepdad became my stepdad.
Right.
So my dad went to live somewhere else. My stepfather lived in the basement. Eventually he became part of the main house, and we lived a couple blocks away from one another. And then my stepfather transferred down here to South Florida a couple of years later. So I moved down here, I was 5. During that time, I don't know if it was trauma or cortical dysplasia, I don't know what was happening, but I would have epileptic seizures. I would fall down and I would completely lose control of my body and I would seize. They didn't know what was going on. They thought maybe it was the red dye in the Kool-Aid.
Right.
They had no idea. So they brought me down here. I went to kindergarten at Atlantic West Elementary School in Margate. The teacher would read. I would listen to what the teacher said. I would recite it back perfectly. They thought I was a great reader. But anyway, I would do very bad every time that they gave me a test on new material. So they held me back. They put me in pre-first, which is an intermediate grade between kindergarten and first grade. I don't know anybody fails kindergarten, but I did. It was fantastic. So then we moved out here to Bonaventure, which became part of Weston.
Right.
I went to Country Isles Elementary School. I went there in pre-first, and I would always tell my parents, like, yeah, I'm in. Someone would ask me, what grade are you in? Well, I'm in 3rd grade, but I should have been in 4th grade, but I got into pre-first. So I'll touch on that in a little bit.
Yes,
I'll tell you how it all comes back around. I had buck teeth. I had a southern accent. I would have seizures, and they found out when I was 8 years old I didn't know how to read. I was an auditory learner, and I would just repeat back what someone said to me. And they found out that I had a vision disability. So I went to this special doctor. His name is Harvey Mazer. They figured out my tracking issue. I had this wonderful mentor that was the ESC specialist that moved with us from Country Isles, and they built Indian Trace Elementary. His name is Elliot Tillinger. Now he's the principal of Everglades Elementary and one of the most amazing humans I've ever met in my life. He worked with me really, really well. In 5th grade, I started martial arts and my seizures stopped.
Wow.
You focus with your eyes, your ears, your mind, and your body. And sometimes people like me, there's so much coming in when you're a kid, and you can't hone it all in, that my neurons were just jumping all over the synapse, and I was seizing. Because I didn't have seizures again. Wow. It was pretty remarkable.
Yeah, wow.
Then they mainstreamed me in 5th grade from ESC classes to the regular classes. And in 7th grade, then I'm like, get my black belt. I'm a really good fighter. I'm going to become a state champion. All this great stuff is happening. Then I thought I'd be like every other cocky middle schooler in 7th grade. I start like just not behaving well in class.
Right.
So a teacher named Mr. Gutierrez recommends me for honors or advanced science. So then you have to track the blood all through the body. And I didn't read any of the books. I just paid attention to him and got 100% on the test because, once again, auditory.
That's all right.
And then they're like, I don't understand. And then they put me in advanced placement classes. And I got a scholarship to college. And then when I went to college, I told my parents, I said, do you remember when you put me in pre-first? Yeah, I'm going to get my year back. So instead of graduating in 2004, I graduated high school in 2000. Instead of graduating college in 2004, I graduated college in 2003.
Wow.
My parents said, good job. I said, told you I'd get my year back.
That's amazing.
Because I had that.
Amazing. You had that.
I had that mindset and that, hey, there was something that happened to me that put me off track.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not gonna go off track. And then my parents made it very clear that when you're in college, you can live at the house.
Yeah.
But as soon as you're out, you're out. You got to figure it out. So the market was great. So in 2003, my last year of college, I met a wonderful woman. That's my wife now, Brandy. She bought a house. She gave me a key, and I said, "But this isn't my house. This is your house.
Yeah.
We're not married yet."
Yeah.
And like she's like, "Well, you can come in whenever you want." I'm like, "I'm never going to be here when you're not here."
Yeah.
Like, but I'm like, I guess I got to buy a house. So I bought a condo. They were giving out mortgages to everybody then. So then I told my parents, I'm like, but you told me at the end I got to move out. They're like, but what?
Yeah, like,
I bought a house.
Yeah.
Like,
What?
So it's interesting, but yeah, adversity. I never felt sorry for myself, and I never felt like I was a victim. These are the cards that I've been dealt. This is my life, and this is what I gotta conquer.
Yeah.
In whatever way that it is, I need to be solution oriented, not problem oriented, because problems don't move. Mm-hmm. When you meditate on a problem, it doesn't change. When you meditate about all the different ways you can approach the problem with the least amount of hurt, as we were talking about before, you find all these creative ways to deal with your problems.
Wow,
it's
that's
interesting. Yeah. So thank you for that question. Yeah.
No, that was a great question. I want to follow up. I mean, that what you just said about how with martial arts that it just stops. I mean, that's insane. That's actually crazy.
Yeah, that is. Yeah.
Because there's people that deal with that, for
the rest of their life.
Yeah. And
I thought I had a tumor. They thought all kinds of different things. They thought it was anxiety.
Yeah.
They thought it was and later on, my father passed of brain cancer, and my dad always thought, not that my seizures were manufactured, but he could never quite understand it. He was an engineer.
Yeah.
And then one day I got a call. I was teaching on the math, and my dad had a seizure. Turned out that he had a brain tumor, but he said, the first thing that happened when I went up there, that's an interesting story there too. I called my best friend Marcelo. He said, okay, I got your plane ticket. I got everything covered. I'm sitting in coach, and I'm just praying, like, God, I have no idea how to get to this medical center that I'm supposedly going to. So at the time they didn't have Google Maps and stuff. It was like 2009. So the lady's sitting next to me. They have this little flight from Atlanta to Birmingham, so there's not really first class or anything like that. Lady's sitting next to me. She goes, yeah, I work at the UAB Cancer Center. She's like, get your rental car, follow me. Okay. She goes, go to the 3rd floor, your dad's right there. I'm like, what? Apparently she was a medical doctor at UAB, and I'd never met her before.
Oh, wow. And
I literally went to the 3rd floor when my dad was right there, and he never understood the whole seizure thing, but then he had one.
Wow.
And he's like, it's like one day I was talking, and the next time I know, everyone's standing around me looking at me, and I'm on the floor. That's how it goes. That's how it goes. Yeah, but it's your mind is an ocean, and we have yet to discover all the beautiful things about everyone's mind, and how we limit ourselves with our vocabulary constantly, and our lack of vision. And for me, I visualize the life that I want, not knowing how it's going to happen.
Right.
But eventually, knowing that it's gonna happen.
That's such a
wild.
freeing way of looking at it. Because
Yeah.
like, I know I suffer from that where it's like, I know where I want to go. I'm always trying to like,
No, me
oh,
too,
but
yeah.
how am I gonna
Get there.
I'm always stressing that and just, if just trusting it. Like, I don't know how it's gonna happen because life there's no straight line.
Yeah, no.
You know, you can go all these ways, but eventually you will get to that. It's just we're not supposed to know everything. You know.
It's interesting you say we're not supposed to know everything. I agree. This is the really rudimentary way that I explain it to people. We're born a square peg meant to go into a round hole. And God is going to allow free will and other people to shave us. And the shaving hurts. The shaving hurts. We're sliced here, sliced here, sliced here.
Yeah.
And eventually we become that perfect thing that falls into our purpose. Every struggle, everything that I've ever been through, I'm so thankful for because I get
got you here.
to relate with the children that are here and the adults that are here. And if I was a gifted athlete from day one,
Yeah.
there's no way I'd be able to relate to them. Like, no, I had to do 10,000 reps of this kick to get it to look like it looks now. There's no way. Yeah, there is way. You can't say there's no way because then you're going to limit yourself.
Yeah.
Then no matter how many reps you do,
Yeah. There's no way.
you just said in your mind and you vocalize it, so you gave it power. Because here's the thing. A thought in your mind, you vocalize with your mouth, your ears hear, and then you remember.
Yeah.
Cycle.
Yeah.
So you can't allow that cycle to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
It's funny you mention that because it's there was a meme, not a meme, I would say it's like a quote that I was reading, and I think it's like an old Chinese proverb where it was, "What you say, be careful what you say because the warrior inside you is listening,
That's right.
and he's hurt whenever you
That's right.
say something negative
Because he feels like you don't believe
because
in
he feels
him.
like you don't believe in him exactly." And I feel like wow.
Let me ask you a question. Have you ever gone, Justin, have you ever gone into state accidentally? Like, have you ever had a time where you were working on something? They can call it flow, you can call it in the zone, where everything else just didn't really matter and you felt like you were perfectly aligned with your purpose?
I have, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about you, Viraj?
Same.
So that happens to me when I'm teaching. When I'm teaching, it's the light and the light back and forth. I'm not thinking of anything else, and it's freeing.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. And then sometimes my phone will go off, and if I find myself going to look at it while I'm teaching,
Out the zone.
end of state.
Yeah.
Which is I think really a detriment that's happening to us right now.
I think so too.
Because now, all of a sudden, you and I can be talking. If my phone goes off, someone else is interacting with me, and then you pick up on the body language of the person that's on the phone, and then I interact with you, and I'm still not out of this
That
conversation.
situation,
You're
yeah.
like, why are you giving me that attitude?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's just going to that person, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's crazy you mention that because we can hold so much resentment towards other people because of something like that as happening to them in the moment.
Correct.
And we don't really think about what they may have just dealt with or they may have just had a conversation. Somebody might just have gotten yelled at by their mom. They're coming into school. You're trying to interact with them. This is your friend. And then they snap on you. And you're like, what's his deal? And you say a few words back, a few choice words back, and then you walk away and they walk away. And you both feel really bad about that scenario, but that person's already stacked on 2 scenarios.
Correct.
And it's crazy because I think that all plays a part into how if you're not intentional or present in the moment, you fail to see that
Correct.
where someone might be hurting.
Correct. And that's one of the book, The 4 Agreements. Don't
Yeah.
take anything personal because it
Yeah.
has everything to do with them and not anything to do with you.
Yeah.
But there's that vanity again where we
course.
think it's all about us and that's the plague. That's the plague of what's happening with everybody now.
Yeah.
You know?
What's your advice to people who are maybe trying to find that purpose, to find that moment of just being so locked in and just freeing of everything, just finding that moment that they know that this is what they want to do or what they're meant to do,
Everything that they do in their life, try to do with a full intention and the thing that feels the best and the thing that they always end up doing, that God or the universe, whatever deity they believe in, that puts them back on that track. Because we have our purpose, and that's what we fall into.
Sure.
If we pay attention to those messages. And just try to pick up on the little messages that happen. Like, for example, the other day I was thinking of a student of mine. His name is Simon. I thought about him. I called him. He didn't answer the phone. I said, okay. Yeah, I'm not for nothing. Normally when I call my students, they answer the phone. He didn't answer the phone. And I was with my daughter in the car. And my intention, my thought was still on Simon.
Yeah.
And then my daughter and I, after I pick her up on Fridays from Griffin Elementary, we always go get ice cream. We normally get ice cream at the Dairy Queen, or we get ice cream wherever. And I said, there's this iceberg roll place that I got to go try where my school used to be on Flamingo and Sterling.
Yeah.
So my mind is still on who?
Simon.
I park. I walk to the ice cream place. I walk past the Edge barber shop. I look in. I see the two barbers that are there. Simon's in the chair.
Wow. Hey, Simon.
Yeah. I said, you didn't answer my call, Simon. He goes, and it turned out that he needs me right now. He's going through something, and he needs me. So I went and I was eating ice cream with Valentina, and I looked out, and Simon's body language was different when he was leaving the Edge barbershop, and then later on he texted me back. He told me a little bit what was going on. I said, okay, we need to meet. We need to talk.
We'll talk about it. Yeah.
But people can take a person that they think about and then they don't call them, or they don't. And a lot of times it's the last interaction you'll ever have with that person. I had a lady that was on my mind one time who I bought a condo from, and then she ended up in a nursing home. But I would go and I would see her sometime. Her name was Dora. Dora was on my mind. I went to the nursing home, and I was 3 minutes late. She had already expired. She already passed. So people need to be locked into the little messages and the little whispers that God gives you every day, because they're there.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, that's crazy. No, it's not. That's you connected to that purpose, to that river of other people.
You said that frequency.
That vibration.
That universal frequency of like, the universe will tell us sometimes these messages of like, hey, you need it.
What you're saying, it's up to us whether we want to listen to it or not. Those little nudges.
Yeah.
And we always talk about this. I love that because it's just, whenever I feel like I get the loudest message when I need it the most. Like the day before, I can really be just stressing about things or whatever I feel, and literally the next day I'll be at work or something, and this person will come up to me and be like, hey, and I'm a bartender, right? So I'm helping this old couple, and they just started talking to me like, oh, how do you feel about your job? And just being really nice. I'm like, oh, it's a good thing. I enjoy it. I enjoy serving people, and while I continue to do my things, and like, oh, what do you do? And I tell them what I like to do. And they're like, oh, that's really good. You're gonna do great things. God bless you, and thank you so much. You're so great. And they just gave me such a And I just have a lot of random people like that, of older people just looking at me and being like, you have such a great work ethic. Like, things are gonna work out great for you. And I've a few words back and forth maybe, but they just see me, and I stop for a second, I take it, and I just like, and it just calms me down. It's just like, okay, all right, life, I got it.
We got a few more reps in me,
And then it just carries over to the next person I deal with, and I just kind of take it and go. And so many moments like that, but again, it's up to us if we want to take that or not. Because I could easily only be fixated on the person that's over here. And I'm like, oh, this person is so annoying because they're, I could have been fixated on that. And just little things like that, or even like angel numbers. I don't know, man. I'm into all that stuff.
No, me too. I'm right there with you.
But it's so true. It's so profound listening to that and taking.
It's funny, speaking on the angel numbers thing. Something similar happened to me where I was, again, living in my head, thinking about the future. Most of the times when I find myself in my lowest states, I'm always thinking of either what I don't have or what I won't have potentially in the future, and that's like what gets me worked up the most in my own head. And one of they were talking about, like, for whatever reason, they were talking about birth years and like the Chinese kind of calendar. So like the animal you're born on, and then like it was a video I came across on Instagram, again, talking about social media. I was scrolling through and they were talking about next year is like the dragon year or whatever. And I'm not like a huge, as you can see by the unfamiliarity of it, I'm not a huge like believer in what I was reading or what I was hearing, but it got me curious. And I was like, I'm year of the pig. Now I want to see what my fortune in the year of the dragon looks like. So I just did a quick Google search. And it was the most reinforcing thing ever. And it ended in the line of those guys that know I get married in January. It said you might get married this year. So I was like, I don't believe this. I don't believe this piece of information. But it definitely got me out of my head, and it just told me to like kind of just trust whatever is coming. And I found myself in the past year or two just kind of, when I get like overall just finding myself trusting life and kind of just showing up regardless of what may be happening inside the house, outside the house, on the career path, and just kind of showing up. And I found like, you know, at least when it comes to being at Marco's Pizza and maybe interacting with certain customers, they might show up very upset or angry, but I do my best to make them leave with a smile. Now that may be like, hey, do you want an extra side of ranch? You know, do you want something on your crust? They may show up with a certain attitude, but I do the best to kind of stay present enough, because how easy is it to just not be present in that moment and take somebody else's aggressive behavior maybe and then like either put up a wall and not do anything or retaliate back. And you know, I feel like we see that so many times when it comes to these videos of people catching like of a social, you know, of a service worker being caught in an unhappy customer, and then next thing you know it gets violent. Yeah. Instead of maybe that person, you know, and that person may be going through it too, but I just feel like the more present we are, I think, in the moment, the less we'll have situations like that. Or, you know, if we think about it from that perspective, but, you know, not everybody, unfortunately, not everybody thinks of it that way.
But you can change the vibration.
But you can change
like
the
when
vibration,
when you see a server like that, you know, buy another table's dinner.
Yeah.
And then the server's like, well, do you know those people? No, but I'm going to buy their dinner.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? Yeah. Because I'm going to buy their dinner. And then the server
all of a sudden
is out of their mindset. And then the next thing you know, something will happen, and the money that you spent buying that other table's dinner comes back to you fivefold. And you're like, because you were just getting somebody out of their stinking thinking. You know, it's interesting. Today I was at the football game, and you know, we were playing the Raiders, and the Raiders historically have been pretty special.
Yeah.
And the guy in front of me, he, you know, kept putting his arm this way, and my cup was there, so like his arm sweat and stuff is getting in my cup. My wife and I are sharing the cup. Yeah. So I just kind of tapped him and I said, hey, and then he would move over, and there were a lot of things, and at this moment in time, he's not human. Yeah. So I had to humanize this person, and he had to see that I'm a human. You know, the light in me sees the light in you. So I was like, hey, what's your name? My name is James. I said, oh, that's great. Good. Welcome. Are you from here? No, I'm from West Virginia, but I like the Raiders. I said, that's cool. They're a Las Vegas team, you know. What's the association behind it? Tell me a story. His kids and lacrosse and all. And then all of a sudden, the human comes out, even though he's cheering for the different team, then it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, I know.
The problem is, though, that people only deal with conflict with other people. And why? Like, why? When you make somebody transactional, if you're serving me and I'm the one paying you, that's the lowest vibration of an experience you can have. Think about the oldest profession in the world, prostitution. Yeah. That's what that is. You're taking
exchange of goods,
an intimate moment and you're making it transactional. Every conversation we have with another human being is the ability to learn from one another. Yeah. We can't make it without stories of other people and their impact. And I tell my students all the time, you can do two things. You can learn from making a mistake and then not doing that again, and then the same thing happens over and over again. Or you can be observant with other people. This person made this mistake, and this is what happened to them in their life, and maybe I don't want to do that. Where a crazy person would say, no, but I'm vain. Remember, it's about me, so that's not going to happen to me. If I cheat on my wife, that won't happen. Even though it happened to that guy, that's not going to happen to me. You know, and we allow ourselves to do this, where we have the ability to learn from everyone. Yeah. But then when we thin slice people and we think we're better than them and they're worse than me, or even kids teach me stuff every day. Yeah.
I don't know, kids probably don't even realize how powerful they can be.
100%.
Too, you know?
Yeah.
They're so like honest and just sincere, and they don't even realize the innocence.
And I feel like a lot of times if you really listen to kids, I feel like it's God talking through them a lot of the times. At least if like you're open enough to hearing it that way or taking in a message, because they'll say some things. Like there's a video of that kid that went viral that was talking to his mom, like she's like, oh, but it's just a movie. But he's like, yeah, but like you can do it too if you believe in yourself. I don't know if that's the direct words or whatever, but it's like you just gotta believe in yourself. You gotta, and I'm like, how does this little kid know? He must be maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe it's just learned how to talk or is communicating. But how does he know such a profound life lesson that people tend to learn much later on? When he's saying it in flow, no hiccups, no doubt in his mind, you know, and it's coming out like just from a higher power. I feel like it's just being emanated for everybody to take in.
There's a comedian, Chris DiStefano. He's from like New York, and he's, you know who he is. He was a physical, if I'm not mistaken, a physical therapist before he was even a comedian.
Interesting.
And he worked at physical
Therapy place,
a rehab place, and for kids with different disabilities and stuff like that. And he was on this show on MTV. It was like a comedy show. It was kind of blowing up. And his boss was like, hey, look, like, people are recognizing you, and, like, it's this show. It's not very appropriate because you know kids, so you got to decide what you want to do. And it was, like, a big moment. And he was like, oh, I don't know. Like, you know, I have this job. It's good. And he loves the kids that he works with. And he said there was this one kid. It was like, being a comedian, he said jokes in between, but, he had issues with his legs and stuff. And he was talking to this kid, like, outside. They were playing catch or something like that. And he was like, oh, I don't know, I'm going to miss you guys if I do this, if I leave this job, you know. And he's like, but why wouldn't you want to follow your dreams? Like, and he just expressed this wisdom and from a child 8 years old. And he was like, why wouldn't you want to go follow your dreams? And he was like, oh, I'm going to miss you guys. I love you guys. He's like, I will always be here. Like, I know, I forgot the exact words, but it was so powerful. And it was along the lines of like, I will always be here in this chair. And he's like, oh, that's what it was. He asked them, how do you know so much? And he's like, oh, when you sit down by yourself for a long time, all you do is think.
Wow.
And you sit down with your mind line. He just told them, I know if it was me, I would go do it. And because I know you would be proud of me. And I will always be here. And I'll be watching you when you...
Oh, wow.
And I get goosebumps. I got goosebumps watching it. I get goosebumps talking about it because here's this child just telling you, like, just with this wisdom, wisdom that you would probably hear from someone you would think older, and I don't know, and it's true. It goes with what you're saying. It's almost like this higher power
speaking through them.
It's almost like they have like an elevated consciousness.
Well, because they're the biggest powers that control us, make us predictable, of course, are fear, right?
Right.
Doubt goes along with fear. And it's being in debt. If people are in debt and people are afraid, they're easy to predict. We know exactly what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Kids don't have that concern. When the fear is removed from the children, some parents have to parent based on fear. But that's not ever, this should never be, you have stick and carrot. Well, stick runs out, carrot never does, right?
Yeah.
So children can speak the truth because they're unbounded, whereas most adults are bounded. They're bounded by those things. And it's interesting. Last week I was in Philadelphia, went to the Benjamin Franklin Museum, and basically from the time he was young to the time he was 42, he was a printer. That's what he did. And then from 42 to his, he was 80 years old, almost 80 years old. He became the first Postmaster General of the United States, a diplomat, all of these things after he freed himself from the bondage of debt and fear.
Yeah.
And then from 42 on, his whole life was basically self-actualization.
That's amazing.
When you read, Benjamin Franklin was pretty frugal while he was still working. Yeah. And he got to a point where all his investments paid off, and then he lived life a little bit differently.
insane. I would say like following that, right? You see the
Sure.
people taking that leap of faith or like removing that debt. And I mean, you doing literally what you love, and I can tell. We can
Yeah,
tell,
we can tell
you
it's-
love this. I mean, is it safe to say like martial arts saved your life in a way? Because when you look at what happened with your father with the seizure, did in any way in your brain were you like, could I have had like the fact that martial arts just helped you?
My father was in Vietnam. There were a bunch of chemicals there
Yeah.
too. My grandfather, he was one of the first pilots to do the transatlantic flights from New York to Paris, but he fell into the bottle. I don't know if he was self-medicating or not.
Yeah.
He ended up dying in Orlando. It's on my dad hated Florida for that reason.
Yeah.
He died homeless with a lockpick set and didn't talk to my dad for a long time. My family is a bunch of men that didn't really understand themselves and got distracted and got pushed around in different ways. Martial arts keeps me very much grounded. And when another part of my story, my first instructor, he just finished writing a book too.
Right.
His name is Mike Kinerick. Mike Kinerick was an Israeli commando, and he gave me a chance because when it started when I was 11. By the time I was 13, my stepfather got laid off from the phone company, and they said, we can't afford your martial art training anymore. And I basically pushed my food away from me, and I said, I'd rather not eat, just use my food money.
Yeah.
I'm going to go train. And then he gave me a chance to clean the school for all the little incidentals. What I didn't know is my father would come in and my dad would write a check for my whole year and leave. I didn't know that until later. But he wanted to teach me the value of hard work.
Yeah.
So then Master Kinerick started paying me $50 a week, which is, this is great. I'm teaching, I'm making $50 a week. I would do the mirrors. I would clean the floor. I broke like 3 vacuums trying to clean the floor. The mirrors, Windex on, Windex off, didn't work very well for me. It was like more streaks everywhere. It's like 3 hours I'm trying to clean the school, and he's sitting there just watching me. And I didn't know until like 10 years later, my mom was giving him the $50 every single week. She just wanted me to learn the value of hard work and work ethic. And my brother's now, he has a doctorate in English and he's a professor. But I was the first one that went through college, even though my brother's 5 years older than me.
Right.
They were like, yeah, Dan's going to be a surgeon probably, or Dan's going to be a neuroscientist. And if Robert just has a normal, stable job, it's okay. But what they didn't know is I was listening to audio tapes and I was reading and I was getting focused. And I didn't want the economic situation that happened to my family to ever happen to me. So one of the things that I learned about as soon as I could is I learned about money, because I didn't want to do anything that I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
I was going to teach martial arts. I was going to make sure it wasn't my only income stream.
Yeah.
There's going to be other. And I had a garbage business. I was taking people's garbage out from the side of their house to the side. I had 4 jobs when I was in high school. One of them was getting $50 from my instructor.
Right.
But I had all other types of jobs too. And I loved it. I was industrious. But yes, the goal setting, the not needing the negative attention, because I was getting the positive attention from the children and the parents. And it fulfilled me. I've never really I've had bad days, of course.
Right.
But hadn't had a bad week or a bad year or anything. Like even the pandemic, my salary went in half, was reduced by half, and that would have wrecked most people. Didn't wreck me. We were fine. We were fine.
Doing martial arts for so many years, what are some of the biggest or most impactful lessons maybe throughout that time period that have stuck with you that maybe you still relate now onto the kids? Have you had like a full circle moment with yourself yet? I'm sure you have at this point, but I'm very curious about that. It's so many years.
Well, when I went through the whole blood clots in the ICU and almost dying and all that, and they told me I couldn't do anything for a month, and the YMCA was 7 doors down from my house, and it had an indoor pool. So the home health care nurse was like coming in 2 hours, and I would literally time it. I would take my walker, go down to the YMCA, and go in the pool, and walk back, walk forth, and then come back and say, "Why is your hair wet?" I don't know. I've been sweating. I went to go run my first mile a little bit later, and 3/4 of a mile, my heart just, I had to stop. And I remember like almost crying. Like I just like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, in my faith, take this cup from me. Like I don't want this cup.
Yeah.
And it's really that. And Bruce Lee said it. It's not really me. He said everything is temporary. You know, good and bad, life lessons, everything is temporary, but your own relationship with yourself is not. And, you know, to know yourself and to know your limitations, to know your boundaries, to know what you're capable of, to know what you can grow through, to be introspective. The hardest journey we can take and the most dangerous journey we can take is inward. If we're not ready for it and we do it, we can have profound health problems. When you're a martial artist, you do that inward journey every day. As I told you, when you close that book at night, what could I have done better with these people in my life to produce a better outcome? And if the answer is nothing, then are you sure? My full circle moment is during the pandemic. Yes, there was a thought of worried about the finances. Something was provided. And the something that was provided was, I wrote down on my vision board at the end of 2020.
Right.
Wrote down in December on my vision board one of the mortgages on one of my rental properties. And I had literally made that year half of what I made any other year. And I'm not used to writing stuff down and not being able to accomplish it. And I said, something told me to write it down. It was literally like 32,600 and something. I'm writing it down. My hand is shaking as I'm writing it down. Put it on the vision board. And then January, moving around, everything else. Well, the PlayStation and the Microsoft, the Xbox, the new ones were coming out. Where do kids go and buy those? GameStop. So I bought GameStop at $6 a share. I bought a bunch of shares.
Oh shit.
All of a sudden, I'm on the way to Legacy one day, and I'm pre-market GME, and I'm like, that's no way.
No.
That's not, there's no way that's happening. Going to work out on the way home, 1,000%? Like what? In a day? Like what is happening? So I go home and I tell Brandy, she's like, go to your vision board. So I go to my vision board and I look at my vision board, and the balance and that number were the same number. I went, sell! Sell! And I sold it.
Crazy.
Right then, paid off that mortgage. And at the time, the person that was my office person, her name is Master Cervera. She has her own school in Texas now. She was living in that unit. And we were worried that if something happened to the school, where are her and her family going to live? And the best part was, I said, don't worry about it. It's been taken care of. Wow. She's like, what? I said, if you can pay me, but if not,
It's okay.
God is great.
Yeah.
And so, like, when you're, I guess the moral of the story is when you're connected to your purpose, there are these crazy things that come out of nowhere.
Something
That's
gave
insane.
You that nudge, though, right? Like something told you, hey, this, like your brain was kind of like, this is crazy, but you were like, something's telling me that I'm gonna write it.
That's crazy.
That's actually crazy. And
That's crazy.
and you saw, okay, PS5 is coming out,
Xbox.
Let me just jump in on this.
Before that, I hadn't done normal stocks. I had only done like my mutual funds.
Yeah.
You know, I had put money in my IRA,
Yeah.
but I had never picked individual stocks. That was
That's
one of the
insane.
individual stocks that I picked. I picked Apple, Berkshire Hathaway, Lululemon, Starbucks, and GameStop. I was like,
I bet you GameStop paid out the
Okay.
most in all of those
oh
companies.
yeah, oh yeah.
I remember that time, and that was a crazy, crazy time. Again, if we can just listen to those nudges, and being in tune like that, and just kind of trusting that intuition,
Man.
It's just that as long as you live a life of servitude, everything will work out for you. Mm-hmm. When you make it about you, then no one's going to serve you because you're not serving anybody else.
That's crazy.
So how can you expect to have everybody serve you if you're not serving anybody? Then you're withdrawing from vibration in the universe as opposed to depositing into it. Like, even though I had mentioned the thing about Sunday was something else, that intention never crossed my mind on this.
Yeah.
Because I know that I can give a message that people are going to listen to. And nor did my wife, nor did my kids. I told Brandy was actually very proud of me and excited about this, my wife. She was super excited about it. And I think the thing is, we think that it's a trade-off, that we can't be our best self because we have to do all this for the people that we're responsible for. We're not responsible for anybody. We're living in harmony with people.
Yeah.
Well, my kids are my kids, but they're God's kids. I'm just the steward of them at the moment. One day they're going to have their life, and I'm going to get to enjoy the moments that they come and see me.
What made you, you were telling us a story that when you were, how old you said 3 or 5 when your parents divorced?
3 years old.
3 years old. So when that was what you had seen growing up, what made you, and not only from the family perspective where you built this beautiful family and you've done it and you've stayed committed and you've been an honorable man, but also the other things in life also, like, like reading about finances, or where did this desire for that come from? Where you wanted to want to fill all of the pots, and want or expect a high standard for yourself in all areas, rather than just be like, martial arts is my thing. I kind of want to just, and everything else that'll happen will happen. But how did you kind of cover all your bases?
We have multi-generational curses and blessings. Mm-hmm. We inherit a flow from our parents and our parents' parents and our parents' parents' parents. Mm-hmm. And it's up to us to break those multi-generational curses so our kids don't end up with them. And, what I saw with my parents is like, the tragedy in that is I wasn't really able to get to know my father the way that I wish I could have known my father. I got to learn about this great man named Carl, who was 6'4" and 350 pounds. That was my stepfather. So you can imagine, and he roared. Oh, when he yelled, he roared. And I got to learn all about him and his vulnerabilities. But he wrestled with demons. And my father was really emotionally disconnected because he was beat when he was younger by my grandfather growing up. And I wanted to just do a little bit better. I wasn't in competition with my family.
No, of course.
But I saw the opportunities and I saw the struggle, and I thought every time that my parents fought, it was about money. Yeah. So why would I ever live beyond my means? Why would I ever push so hard that there was no time with them either? Money was a tool, like a drill or a hammer, not something to be worshipped. And then I said, okay, well, what are these books on money? Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Yeah. And then I know when I talk to you guys, you're probably like, all this really happened to him, like Forrest Gump?
Yes.
So I'm teaching one day, I'm talking about Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and one of the grandfathers is watching. He says, I need you to come to my house. I'm like, okay. My name is Rolf. And I'm like, okay, Rolf Nader. Like Rolf. Yeah. No, not the guy that ran for president. I forgot Rolf's last name. But his name is Rolf. Like, okay. So, and he goes, I have his game. I have Cash Flow. Have you ever played Cash Flow? And I said, I've never played Cash Flow, but I've heard about it. Yeah. I heard about it in the book. I'd sure. So Brady and I went over there, and he gave me this original board, and he gave me this magazine cutout. He goes, I was one of the creators of the game. What?
That's crazy.
What do you? And he literally signed the board that I have. And I was in my 20s, and I started inviting my friends over. To play the game. Have you ever heard of Cash Flow?
Yeah. I heard of it.
Yeah. Okay, so I invited all my friends over, and all my friends started learning about, so I get it. So you have to have these cash-producing assets that replace your active income. And as soon as you do that, you go into the winner's circle. And I'm like, all right, so here's your homework. Here's your balance sheet. Take it home till it does replace your active income. And then, So yeah, we still have that game piece, but it's like I wanted to know about money. I wanted to know about finances. When I was 18, my grandmother had died, and she had done a life estate for my great uncle, my uncle Conrad. But then the state of Alabama came and wanted the eminent domain Selma Road. So my mom grew up off of Selma Road. So like Martin Luther King, we shall overcome, in front of the house. Like I said, crazy stuff.
Crazy, yeah.
Crazy stuff. So then they widened it so all of the grandkids got a bunch of money, and I got $5,000, and I was 18. What does an 18-year-old do with $5,000? I'm like, I'm gonna go open a retirement account. So at the time, the limit on our IRA was $2,000. Now it's $6,500. It was $2,000. So okay, what do I do with the other three? I put it in a different mutual fund. Wow. So I'm 18 and I have this money and this, and then what did my brother do? My brother bought golf clubs. What did my other cousins do? I don't know. My brother's doing great financially now, though, because I got him the big book of money with Tony Robbins.
Yeah. Money Master of the Game.
Yeah, Money Master of the Game. And my brother's like, he called me the other day and he's talking about it. I'm like, yes! I'm so proud of you right now.
That's awesome.
But and just one more thing about my brother, which is a really amazing part of my brother. When my parents got divorced, it's funny because I don't remember certain things, but I feel certain things.
100%.
And I love my brother. My brother's always there for me. I know you have a brother. You have a brother also? Two brothers. My dad used to firemen's carry me upstairs in Alabama. We'd fall asleep in the basement. My dad would put me on his shoulders and he would carry me upstairs. I remember my oldest memory is after my dad had moved away, before my stepfather came to live with us. My brother's only 5 years older than me, so I was 3, he was 8. He put me on his shoulders and he would go up a couple of steps and he would give out. And he'd go a couple steps and he'd give out. And he'd go a couple steps and he'd give out. But eventually I made it into the bed. Maybe he dropped me on my head and that's why I had seizures. No, I'm kidding. But he taught me early on that love is about sacrifice. And we don't ever want to be a burden on people. So the financial part had to happen.
Yeah.
And then just life mastery with the other stuff. It's like, okay, now the fitness part. Now all of a sudden I'm, pushing 30 and I don't look the way that I want to look. So what do I need to do? So in 3 months, I lost like 34 pounds because I said, okay, this is what I'm going to eat.
Yep.
And I'm going to do these workouts. And yeah. And then even the failures. Like I failed my 5th degree black belt testing. I'm a 7th degree now. I was in Arkansas, Little Rock, Arkansas is where the ATA World Championships are. And I walk into the building and I see a sign that says Leadership Camp, San Francisco. And I had this weird feeling here. And I'm like, I've never been to San Francisco. That's interesting. So then I went and I did my test. But Victoria, my daughter, I'm the victim of this, just so happened. She got an ear infection, so she stayed up all night crying. It was just very uncomfortable. So out of a 10, I got a 4 on the test. So I bombed it. I failed. 2 of my friends, they passed. I failed. I knew I failed, but they don't tell you until like 6 weeks later. 6 weeks later, they tell me, and all I said was, when is my chance to test again? When is my chance? Oh, San Francisco Leadership Camp. Okay.
Wow.
Thanks! So I go to San Francisco. We had to train real hard for like 3 days. Yeah. At the end of that whole experience, there was this like weird fire in me, like that peak performance state. I got an 11 out of 10 because they gave you an extra point for being real
enthusiastic,
real crazy,
yeah,
enthusiastic. And I wouldn't take back that. It's funny because now downstairs my 7th degree is there, my 6th degree is not, my 5th degree is still framed because that's the one I had to retest for. Wow. So downstairs my failure looks at me every day, but it's not really the failure anymore, it's the overcome.
Yes.
And that's what happens. We get these obstacles because we're supposed to overcome them. We don't get them like, oh, God doesn't like me, so he's giving me this obstacle. We give them because we become the person we're supposed to when we go through that adversity. Wow. That's what happens. Once again, that square peg gets shaved into that round cylinder to fall into our purpose. So
That's so true, because even you look back, for me personally, right, I look back maybe like let's say like 5 years ago, and I think of how much I've changed or the things that I've been through, and I just see where I'm at now, just emotionally, spiritually. I'm at a different state than where I was maybe, let's say, like high school, and it's just like, wow, that's only a couple years
ago,
you know?
yeah.
And it's such a, and I'm just now looking back, I'm grateful for those tough moments. At the moment, you're like, oh my,
Why do I have to go through this?
I'm having a meltdown. I've had, anything, right?
Yeah.
And when you look back, it's like, wow, like you can look back at it like at peace. It's like I understand, like, and it makes you more empathetic towards other people, because now I can just, and a lot of people, I'm really grateful for a compliment I get is when people tell me, like, you just listen. I feel so calm when I'm around you. And so when they tell me that, I take it. And I'm like, and there's times that, anybody, when they're telling me about their problems or they're going through something, or if I feel like they are, I'm like, how are you doing? Like, what's, and they just, and like, they've been waiting for that. Some people just, they want to be heard, and just looking back, and it's like, it's through those adversities that you can look at, be more empathetic and help people, again, instead of hurting people, because I could have taken that hurt and keep hurting. And it's just, so it's really interesting. I wanted to follow up with that of just like, looking back, right, where do you see yourself in, let's say, 5 years? Is there anything goal-oriented that you see yourself maybe something new?
I like that reverse gap. I mean, you said that you look back 5 years from before. Mark Cuban was still a bartender when he became a millionaire. So Mark Cuban became a millionaire and he was still bartending because he would get so much education from the people that would sit at his bar.
Oh.
That is true. That is true.
What's the difference between a bartender and a therapist? What's the difference between a bartender and an educator? Nothing, just a title. There's still humans in front of you that you're able to hear wisdom from.
Wow.
So
I did not know that about Mark Cuban.
Mark Cuban, look it up. Yeah, absolutely. So in 5 years, my daughter is, I have one daughter who's 15. I have another daughter who's 10. 5 years from now, I hope my body holds up to continue doing what I do. 5 years from now, I'd probably like to, well, no, I don't want to say probably like to because it doesn't sound like a goal, right?
Yeah.
I want to have an apartment building instead of just apartments in different places. I'm in the home that I've manifested since I went to a party with my mom in 8th grade. So I'm in my forever home right now. And my daughter will be 20. She wants to go to University of Florida now. She's a 3rd degree black belt. Last year she wasn't sure she wanted to go to University of Florida. She had average grades. She decided that she wants to go to University of Florida. Now she has a 4.0.
Wow.
Because the goal, the trajectory. I don't need to have more schools. That's the interesting part. To be quite honest with you, it's the machine is always more. I can't wait to be able to see the sunrise every day instead of just a couple days a week. Because Victoria will be able to go to school, and Valentina will be able to go to school to have a different time that's not 6:45 in the morning that they have to go to school. So I'll be able to watch the sunrise at the beach every day. I'll be able to spend more thoughtful time with my wife, probably travel more in the next 5 years. And I did that last week. I was in Philly. The week before that, I was in Kentucky.
That was awesome.
Yeah, so I enjoy these little weekend excursions. I like to devote my time in doing that. And more of like this stuff. I want to let everyone know what martial arts really is. Because all the self-discovery, all the motivational speaking, all the walking on fire and breaking the boards, all of that comes from martial arts or just we knew a long time ago that warriors had to develop the inside so they could defend the outside. The samurai, the Haran, that's why they they painted, they did poems, they studied humanities because they had to be really strong in spirituality. They had to be really strong inside to be able to defend themselves, their village, their warrior class, people with it. So next 5 years, I'd like to do more things like this. Let people know what Indomitable Spirit is about, what martial arts can actually do for them. It's not just people in a cage with biker shorts all bloodying up each other. A lot of misconception now, especially with the mothers and the fathers, the parents. Dads want their kids to kick butt all the time. And it's like, no, if you have the character, you're not going to need to use it. It's like you never want to use your fire insurance, right?
Exactly.
On your house, but it's there if you need it. And then the moms need to see more of that, and I'm generalizing now, but more of the character development side like your mother did. She attributes a lot of your goal setting to that. So that's a great question. Thanks for asking me that, Justin.
You have anything else?
Man, that was my question, dude. That's great. I'm glad you asked that. That was perfect.
That was such a great send off. I don't know if you have
that's definitely that wraps up pretty much everything that you're about, Master Creed. And
Thank you so much for
we appreciate you taking your Sunday time. I know you're a big family person. We'd be remiss to mention all of these great things about you and not mention the amount of time you spend with your family, because I see it all the time. I'm on his Instagram. The time you taking breakfast with your daughter and time you spend with your wife and stuff like that, and the conversations we've had on relationships. So it would be remiss if we didn't mention that part. But we appreciate you and everything you're about, Master Creed.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks for wanting to come and interview me.
It was a must.
And learning all about this. This meant a lot to me too.
No, we appreciate you, Master Creed. Thank you for
one of my favorite conversations.
yes.
So much.